The atmosphere inside the federal courtroom grew still as Judge Reggie Walton gently tapped his gavel, signaling the end of the day's session. What started as a routine judicial conference on community policing had unexpectedly turned into a moment that would be remembered far beyond those walls. "Before we conclude," Judge Walton said, his deep voice filling the quiet chamber, "I want to recognize something truly exceptional that happened here today." Known for his careful choice of words and balanced tone, the veteran federal judge turned his gaze toward Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, seated calmly at the council table. "Congresswoman Crockett," he continued, "in more than 3 decades on the federal bench, it's rare that I see someone combine such sharp legal insight with such genuine grace. Your presentation on community-focused justice is a powerful reminder of why civil dialogue is essential." Reporters exchanged quick looks and the audience leaned forward to listen. Walton, a respected judge appointed by President George W. Bush, had just offered public praise to a Democratic congresswoman, and in a way that rose above politics entirely. But it was Crockett's humble reaction that would turn this moment from noteworthy to truly historic, sparking a nationwide conversation about dignity, leadership, and the power of respectful public service. Before we share what happened next, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel. We highlight inspiring stories of leadership, collaboration, and positive change. Examples of what's possible when public officials lead with character and purpose. The E. Barrett, Prettyman Federal Courthouse in Washington, D.C. had seen countless historic hearings, but on this particular spring morning, the atmosphere felt different. The Justice Department had gathered federal judges, police officials, lawmakers, and community leaders for a special conference on reimagining community policing for the 21st century. The goal was ambitious: rebuild trust between law enforcement and historically underserved communities, a challenge made even more urgent by recent high-profile incidents across the country. Unlike typical political events, this conference was designed for real solutions, not sound bites. Each panelist would share evidence-based recommendations, followed by questions from a judicial panel led by Judge Walton. Bringing decades of experience and a unique perspective, Walton had earned widespread respect for his independence and fairness. Raised in a working-class neighborhood in Pennsylvania, he knew firsthand the importance of both strong policing and community trust. "We're not here to win political arguments," he reminded the group in his opening remarks. "We're here to find solutions that serve every American, no matter their zip code or background." Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett represented a new generation of leadership. Before entering Congress, she built an impressive career as a civil rights attorney in Texas, winning major cases that improved police accountability while also supporting officer safety. Her work consistently challenged the false choice between public safety and civil rights, proving that both could coexist. What's your view on the role of civil discourse in solving our country's biggest challenges? Do you think respect in public service is fading? Share your thoughts in the comments. We want to hear how you think trust can be rebuilt across divides. What set Crockett apart was her rare ability to unite opposing sides. Despite representing a strongly Democratic district, she earned the respect of many police organizations for her balanced, practical approach. She pushed for accountability while acknowledging the everyday difficulties officers face. She demanded reform but refused to paint entire professions with a broad brush. Her preparation for this conference was thorough. Rather than relying only on studies and statistics, she spent months holding listening sessions with residents, police officers, judges, and families directly affected by crime. She brought their voices into the room, not just data. The panel featured a wide range of perspectives. James Montgomery, president of the National Police Chiefs Association, Dr. Ella Chen, an expert in community-based safety strategies, and Robert Williams, a community organizer who successfully led neighborhood safety initiatives in Chicago. While everyone agreed on the need for progress, tensions quickly surfaced. Montgomery stressed the challenges officers face in high-crime areas and called for stronger community cooperation. Williams countered with real-world examples where community-led project succeeded despite initial police resistance. Dr. Chung shared research showing that collaboration consistently led to better results than confrontation. As the debate became more intense, many in the audience expected the discussion to break down into political division. Instead, Congresswoman Crockett's speech offered a refreshing alternative, one that protected core principles while modeling civility and understanding. When her turn came, Crockett walked to the podium with calm confidence. Setting aside her prepared notes, she spoke directly to the audience. Before I share my recommendations, she began, I want to recognize something important. Everyone in this room, whether you wear a badge, a robe, or simply care about your neighborhood, is driven by the same goal, justice and safety. We may disagree on how to achieve it, but our destination is remarkably similar. That simple acknowledgement of shared purpose immediately shifted the mood in the room. Several attendees nodded, including those who had been skeptical just moments earlier. In preparing for today, she continued, I spoke with Officer Michael Ramirez, who patrols one of the most challenging neighborhoods in my district. He told me something I'll never forget, Congresswoman. I don't need people to agree with everything I do. I just need them to understand that I'm trying my best under difficult circumstances. Then, turning toward the community advocates, she added, I also spoke with Ms. Denise Washington, whose son was wrongfully detained last year. She told me I don't hate the police. I just want them to see my son the way I do, as someone deserving of dignity and a chance to be understood. What followed was far more than a typical political speech. It became a powerful lesson in how to build bridges without compromising principles. Congresswoman Crockett shared a vision for modern community policing that addressed concerns from all sides while staying firmly rooted in justice and fairness. She laid out 5 specific recommendations, each backed by data and proven success stories from across the country. 1. Greater transparency in policing data. Crockett explained that departments that voluntarily release detailed information on traffic stops, arrests, and use of force incidents often experience improved public trust and higher officer morale. Sunlight isn't just a disinfectant, she said. It's a builder of trust. When nothing is hidden, suspicion on all sides begins to fade. 2. Expanded crisis response teams. She advocated for programs where police work alongside mental health professionals, highlighting examples from both conservative and progressive cities where this approach has saved lives and reduced unnecessary confrontations. 3. Balanced community oversight boards. Unlike traditional civilian review panels, Crockett proposed boards that include both community members and current or former law enforcement officers. This mix would ensure decisions are made with a full understanding of policing realities while still centering public accountability. 4. Stronger officer wellness programs. She noted that departments investing in mental health support for officers report fewer incidents of excessive force. Healthy officers make safer communities, she explained. 5. Neighborhood-specific policing plans. Instead of applying one-size-fits-all policies, Crockett urged collaborative strategies tailored to each community's unique needs, developed jointly by residents and police. Throughout her presentation, Crockett didn't ignore opposing arguments. She addressed them directly and respectfully. For example, when discussing oversight boards, she spoke straight to law enforcement representatives. I understand the concern that civilian review might become adversarial. That's exactly why I'm proposing a model that includes law enforcement voices to ensure fairness and accuracy. When Judge Walton opened the floor for questions, James Montgomery, head of the National Police Chiefs Association and previously skeptical, was the first to speak. Congresswoman, he began, your plan seems balanced on paper. But how do we prevent these oversight boards from becoming politically motivated? Attacks on officers who make split-second decisions? It was a tough question, but Crockett handled it calmly. That's a valid concern, Mr. Montgomery, she replied. Any oversight system must distinguish between honest mistakes and actual misconduct. That's why these boards should follow clear guidelines that reflect standard police procedures and the realities of rapid decision-making. Including former officers adds crucial perspective that purely civilian boards might miss. Montgomery nodded in appreciation. I value your understanding of the challenges officers face every day. He said. Dr. Elishin posed a question from another angle. Your proposals sound practical, she said, but they still rely on institutions many communities deeply distrust. How do we overcome that skepticism? Crockett agreed that this was a real issue. Trust can't be written into law or demanded, it has to be earned, she responded. That's why these proposals include measurable accountability goals and regular community feedback sessions. We're not asking people to trust words alone, but consistent, proven actions. Throughout the Q&A, Crockett remained steady and respectful. She firmly defended her principles of equity and accountability while validating the concerns of every participant. She didn't villainize anyone. Instead, she focused on building common ground without abandoning her core values. The dialogue continued. A noticeable change swept over the room. The tone of the entire conference shifted. Participants started using language that emphasized shared goals and mutual respect. Even those with opposing viewpoints began acknowledging one another's valid points while clarifying their own positions. What had begun as a potentially divisive debate transformed into a model of constructive discussion, not because people compromised their beliefs, but because they communicated them with civility and understanding. As the conference prepared to break for lunch, Judge Walton made an unexpected announcement. Removing his glasses, he addressed the room. Before we recess, I want to reflect on what we've witnessed this morning. This has been a masterclass in how democracy should handle difficult conversations. The room fell silent as he continued. As a federal judge, I can't endorse specific policies, but I can recognize exceptional advocacy when I see it, especially when it raises the quality of our national dialogue rather than lowering it. Turning toward Crockett, he said, Congresswoman, your presentation has demonstrated something our public discourse desperately needs, the ability to stand firm in one's principles without attacking those who disagree. You've shown that one can fight passionately for justice while still showing respect for every voice at the table. The courtroom remained completely still as Judge Walton concluded. In my 30 years on the bench, it's rare to see someone bring together such legal brilliance and genuine grace. Your work today reminds us why civil dialogue is so vital to democracy. He added, this isn't about politics or partisanship. It's about the character and skills required to engage in meaningful democratic debate. We can disagree, even strongly, without assuming the worst about those on the other side. The judge's remarks from a Bush-appointed Republican directed toward a Democratic Congresswoman carried enormous weight precisely because they transcended party lines. It wasn't political flattery. It was professional acknowledgement of excellence. Crockett, clearly moved by the unexpected praise, paused for a moment before gathering her thoughts. When she finally spoke, Congresswoman Crockett's words reflected the same thoughtfulness that had shaped her entire presentation. Thank you, Your Honor, she began. While I'm deeply grateful for your kind words, what truly matters isn't my individual approach. It's our shared commitment to real solutions. The issues we're discussing today affect real neighborhoods and real officers who serve them. They deserve our very best efforts to find common ground without losing sight of our principles. She continued, a mentor once taught me that effective advocacy isn't about how impressive you look, it's about how much progress you help create toward justice. And often, that progress requires building unexpected coalitions based on shared values, even when we don't share identical perspectives. Then she did something unexpected. She turned to James Montgomery, the police association president with whom she often disagreed on policy. I want to recognize Mr. Montgomery's willingness to engage in these difficult conversations, she said. We may not always agree on specific solutions, but I have never doubted his dedication to officer safety and the well-being of the communities they serve. Montgomery, clearly moved by the gesture, nodded in appreciation. Likewise, Congresswoman, he replied. We need more conversations like this. As the conference broke for lunch, the mood shifted noticeably. People who usually stayed in their professional or political corners began mingling across divides. Police representatives sat with community activists for meaningful conversations. Judges discussed real-world experiences with neighborhood leaders. The artificial walls that often separate such events started to fall away. Dr. Chun, the criminologist, joined a table with both officers and activists. Their conversation focused not on blame or accusation, but on identifying neighborhoods where collaboration had already delivered promising results. A veteran Justice Department official with 3 decades of experience turned to a colleague and remarked, "I've been to dozens of these conferences. Usually people leave more entrenched in their views than when they arrived. Something different is happening here." During the lunch break, reporters approached attendees for comments, but instead of the usual partisan sound bites, they heard thoughtful reflections on cooperation and shared goals. When CNN asked Montgomery about Judge Walton's praise, he responded with unexpected candor. The judge recognized what many of us have seen today, that Congresswoman Crockett takes a unifying approach without abandoning her principles. She advocates accountability but also understands the pressures officers face. That balance is rare and refreshing. Williams, the community organizer who had earlier voiced doubts about police involvement, told MSNBC, "What stood out to me was how the Congresswoman elevated community voices without creating unnecessary division. She showed that you can push for reform without demonizing the people wearing the badge." When participants returned for the afternoon session, the tone of the event transformed even further. The formal panel discussions gave way to collaborative working groups tasked with turning proposals into actionable plans. Each group was intentionally diverse, including law enforcement officers, judges, community advocates, and policy experts. In a working group focused on crisis response teams. A Dallas police captain shared how such programs had significantly reduced both use of force incidents and officer injuries in his department. A community advocate from Baltimore added that similar initiatives had strengthened trust in neighborhoods once hostile to police presence. Together, they began drafting guidelines that combined both perspectives. Crockett moved between the groups, not to dominate the discussions, but to facilitate communication where conversations stalled. When disagreements arose, she helped participants identify shared values hidden beneath their policy differences. In the transparency group, tension emerged over how much officer information should be made public. Rather than taking a side, Crockett asked clarifying questions to uncover the core concerns. Officers were worried about safety, while communities demanded accountability. That reframing led to a breakthrough, a tiered disclosure system that protected officer privacy while ensuring meaningful oversight. By late afternoon, each group had drafted preliminary recommendations built from multiple viewpoints. Unlike the vague statements or one-sided proposals that often emerge from such events, these recommendations were specific, actionable, and broadly supported. As the conference drew to a close, Judge Walton invited each group to present its work. The results were extraordinary, proposals that respected concerns from every side while still advancing real reform. They were not watered-down compromises, but thoughtful syntheses of ideas that addressed core issues identified by all stakeholders. In his closing remarks, Judge Walton reflected on what had taken place. "What we've seen today goes beyond mere politeness," he said. "We've witnessed how respectful engagement can lead to solutions that might actually work because they're shaped by multiple perspectives, not just a single agenda that ignores others' valid concerns." He continued, "If there's a lesson to take away, it's that democracy functions best when we confront differences with both conviction and courtesy." I hope what we've seen here today inspires similar efforts across our deeply divided public square. As participants prepared to leave, one final surprise captured the spirit of the day. Montgomery approached Crockett with an invitation. "Congresswoman," he said, "our annual Law Enforcement Leadership Conference is next month in Dallas. We'd be honored if you would deliver the keynote address on building community police partnerships." An invitation like this, from a major police organization to a reform-minded congresswoman, would have seemed unthinkable just hours earlier. It was a clear sign that her approach had opened new paths forward, respecting both accountability and the daily realities officers face. Crockett accepted with her characteristic thoughtfulness. "I'd be honored, Mr. Montgomery," she replied, "and I hope you'll join me at a community forum in my district next month. Our residents would benefit from hearing directly from law enforcement leadership about the challenges you navigate every day." This exchange, witnessed by many in the room, perfectly captured the transformation that had taken place, a shift from division to dialogue, from skepticism to shared purpose. It was a demonstration of what can happen when people commit to listening, understanding, and building solutions together. What started as opposing viewpoints gradually turned into a true partnership without either side giving up their core beliefs. When the conference ended, participants left not only with new policy ideas, but also with a model for meaningful collaboration that would guide their future work. The event proved that building bridges based on principles can deliver more than just positive feelings. It can lead to real, lasting results. And its lessons went far beyond policing. Judge Reggie Walton's praise and Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett's approach sparked an impact that stretched far beyond the event itself. By that evening, news of their exchange had spread across traditional media and social platforms, offering a refreshing change from the usual confrontational political headlines. CNN highlighted the substance of the meeting, noting that the judicial conference delivered something rare in modern politics: detailed policy recommendations supported by people across the ideological spectrum. At the center of this achievement was Congresswoman Crockett, whose balanced approach earned public recognition from Judge Walton. Even Fox News surprised viewers with its coverage, calling the event a rare example of bipartisan cooperation. It described how a Democratic lawmaker and a Bush-appointed federal judge modeled the kind of respectful dialogue democracy desperately needs. The Washington Post captured the moment perfectly with its headline, "A rare moment of democratic dialogue. Judge Walton praises Crockett's bridge-building strategy." Within days, clips of Crockett's remarks and Walton's comments went viral, not because of controversy, but because they offered a hopeful alternative to the usual political drama. Law schools, policy programs, and leadership academies even requested full recordings to include in their teaching materials. The tangible results were just as powerful. The conference's working groups compiled their findings into a comprehensive report titled "Building Community Safety Through Collaborative Approaches." Unlike many government reports that are forgotten, this one quickly gained traction. Within a month, pilot projects inspired by its recommendations launched in 12 cities. All shared a key feature: they were developed through inclusive collaboration among law enforcement, community leaders, and policy experts, rather than being imposed from the top down. In Dallas, for example, a new crisis response program teamed mental health professionals with specially trained officers. The initiative showed early success by reducing both arrests and use-of-force incidents, while connecting people to proper care. Its design reflected contributions from police officials and community advocates alike. In Atlanta, a transparency project made policing data publicly available while still protecting officer safety, a balanced approach welcomed by both police unions and civil rights groups. Philadelphia took a localized approach, creating neighborhood-specific policing strategies through open community forums. These plans recognize that every area faces different challenges and must have tailored solutions. 2 months later, Congresswoman Crockett delivered a keynote at the National Police Chiefs Association annual meeting. Her speech, "Partners in Safety: Building Bridges Between Police and Communities," earned a standing ovation from law enforcement leaders who had once been skeptical of reform-minded lawmakers. "We don't have to choose between supporting officers and ensuring accountability," she said. "The best policies achieve both, providing training, resources, and support for police while ensuring transparency and public input." Afterward, Montgomery invited Crockett to join a new advisory council uniting police leaders and reform advocates to create best practices for 21st century policing. He also kept his promise to attend a community forum in Crockett's district, where open dialogue led to concrete steps that improved local police-community relations. Judge Walton's recognition continued to influence legal circles too. The Federal Judicial Center developed a new training program on how to foster productive conversations in divisive cases, inspired by the principles demonstrated at the conference. In an interview with the American Bar Association Journal, Walton explained why Crockett's advocacy impressed him. It wasn't only her strong legal reasoning, it was her commitment to engaging different perspectives rather than dismissing them. She showed that it's possible to be principled and respectful, and that conviction and courtesy can complement each other. In today's polarized climate, many think effective advocacy means being combative, Walton said. But Congresswoman Crockett showed that thoughtful engagement often achieves far more meaningful results. I hope her example shapes how we train future advocates. The legal field paid attention. Bar associations launched new continuing education courses focused on advocacy in polarized environments. And law schools added the Walton-Crockett Exchange to their professional responsibility curricula. 6 months later, early data from the pilot program showed promising results. Cities that adopted the collaborative safety strategies saw improvements in public safety and stronger trust between communities and police. Agencies that embraced transparency experienced better community cooperation in solving cases. Crisis response teams significantly reduced arrests and emergency room visits related to mental health crises. These measurable outcomes drew bipartisan praise in Congress. Lawmakers from both parties, inspired by the success of this balanced approach, formed a working group to draft federal legislation supporting similar programs nationwide. When the bill was introduced, its Republican co-sponsor explicitly cited the Walton-Crockett model as proof that respectful engagement leads to effective policy. Like the conference itself, the bill was shaped by input from law enforcement, mental health professionals, civil rights groups, and community organizations, all united around the shared goal of creating safer, more collaborative communities. The Safer Communities Through Collaborative Policing Act passed with overwhelming bipartisan support, a rare achievement in today's political climate when it comes to policing reform. The legislation funded new crisis response teams, expanded transparency programs, improved officer wellness initiatives, and supported community-driven safety planning. It also established strict performance standards to ensure accountability and measurable results. At the signing ceremony, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett appeared on stage alongside Montgomery, symbolizing the unexpected partnership that grew from their first encounter at the Judicial Conference. Their joint appearance showed how principled collaboration can deliver not just goodwill, but real, impactful policy. For Crockett, the effects of this moment extended far beyond a single bill. Once known mainly within legal and advocacy circles, she became a nationally recognized voice for principled collaboration and bipartisan problem-solving. Universities, nonprofits, and policy groups across the ideological spectrum invited her to speak on effective advocacy in a polarized political environment. The Washington Post published a widely read profile titled, "Bridge Builder: How Jasmine Crockett Is Changing the Politics of Justice Reform," which highlighted how her results-first approach was influencing a new generation of public servants. The old model of advocacy assumed the loudest voice wins, Crockett explained in the interview. But volume doesn't equal impact. Real change happens when you build coalitions around shared values, even if you still disagree on certain policies. That's not about compromising your principles. It's about communicating them in a way that invites cooperation rather than creating resistance. When asked by a law student if her approach was realistic in today's divisive politics, Crockett admitted that it was not always easy. Our media landscape and political incentives often reward demonizing opponents instead of engaging them, she said. But I found that most Americans, regardless of political views, are tired of endless conflict. They want leaders who actually solve problems. She went on, "This isn't about seeking some watered-down middle ground or abandoning your beliefs. It's about understanding that even people who disagree with you often raise legitimate concerns. Addressing those concerns is how you create lasting solutions, instead of short-term wins that disappear after the next election. Her message resonated far beyond partisan boundaries. Conservative commentators, despite disagreeing with her policy positions, praised her respectful approach.